right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's program, Cricut Machine Overview. My name is Caitlin Tips, and I am a Public Services Librarian Senior with Plano Public Library, and I will be presenting today's program. I am assisted by Priyanka, who will be monitoring the chat for any questions. Please say hi, Priyanka.
Hi, everyone. You
Thank
can put
you.
any chat in there and I'll let Caitlin know. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Priyanka. So before we begin, I do need to go over a few ground rules that we've set up for today's program. You will be muted during this class, and we have your video blocked. You will only see the instructor screen. At the top of your screen, you can find an exit full screen option if you need to get to other things on your computer. You are welcome to ask questions or request that the instructor repeat information at any time during today's program. You should see an icon at the bottom of your screen that says chat. You can click on that to open the chat window, and chat is set to be seen by library staff only. If you prefer, you may also use the Q&A feature located at the bottom of your screen to ask questions. Please note that any inappropriate questions or comments will cause your immediate removal from today's class. For all questions, we may answer you either directly in the chat or Q&A box. Hold the question until a break or the end of class, or ask the question at the time if it's pressing. On our website, you can also find a link for a handout to accompany today's program for the design space basics, and we will also share links to other resources in the chat. We will be using the instructor screen to demonstrate any information. We may also switch it later in today's class to a video demonstration. A recording of today's program will be available in a few days. So if you would like to watch today's program again and just refresh on any information, that will be available. So with that out of the way, let us jump into our next slide, which is today's agenda. So we will be covering an introduction of the machines, the software requirements, an overview of the machine itself, the various accessories and materials that go along with the Cricut machine, and we will have a live cut demo. Okay, before we go too much further, I do want to share that staff are not Cricut machine experts. Today's purpose is to provide a general overview of the Cricut cutting machine, the various Cricut accessories, and the various uses of the machine. And information in this program is accurate as of today. So information changes all the time. Cricut releases new things, but as of today, this information is accurate. For further Cricut expertise, however, please utilize the LinkedIn or Udemy resource that is free with a Plano Public Library card. We also provide free access to the Cricut machine for the public with a library card in our digital creation spaces located at the Haggard, Harrington, and Parr libraries. All right. With that out of the way, let's start talking about Cricut. So what is a Cricut machine? What has brought you to today's class? So simply put, it is an electronic smart cutting machine that is programmed to cut, draw, or personalize material under 3 millimeters of thickness with vector-based designs. It is also known as a cutting plotter, smart die cut machine, and even an automatic cutting machine. It was first introduced by Provocraft, the company that created Cricut, in 2005 with their very first machine, the Cricut CRV001, also known as the personal machine that was later upgraded to the Expression model that same year. Since then, there have been 6 new models introduced in their product lineup that are capable of cutting, drawing, embossing, debossing, and more. They have expanded their capability to cutting over 300 plus materials, which is crazy, absolutely crazy. Now, what types of machines are currently available within the Cricut framework. So we have currently 4 different types of series of cutting machines through Cricut. There are currently the Cricut Joy and Joy Extra. This is Cricut's smallest portable cutting machines capable of matless cutting, and it is not capable of cutting the same material as the Maker series. However, as it does not have a smart housing device. The Joy is this blue machine pictured on the screen right here. It is again, the cute, smallest Cricut model on the market. The regular Joy has a cutting width of 4.5 inches by 6.5 inches in length, while the Joy Extra has a cutting width of 8.2 inches by 11.7 inches in length. It can cut a maximum length of 4 feet for smart material geared for the Joy device. Next, we have the Cricut Explore. The Cricut Explore series is currently on model number 3, having had 2 previous iterations. The machine used to come with a smart dial with material selections. This has disappeared with the current model as material selection is now exclusively done in the Design Space software. It also does not come with smart housing. It can cut materials up to 11.7 inches wide and up to 4 feet in length for, again, smart material. Otherwise, it is the default mat size of 12 by 24 inches. And then we have the Cricut Maker. The Cricut Maker is the most expansive model with the capability of cutting over 300 plus different types of materials. This is because it does come with that smart housing device, which is a gear that allows the machine to rotate and operate more heavy-duty blades, like the rotary, knife blade, and more. It currently only has 2 models in the series, despite also being on the model number 3. Its max cutting size is the same as the Explorer series, with the width again being 11.7 inches by a max of 4 feet for matless cutting, or the mat size of 24 inches. And finally, we do have the newest model, which is the Cricut Venture. It was released last year, and it is the brand's wide format professional cutting machine. It cuts objects with a max width of 25 inches and a length of up to 150 feet. It is compatible with 7 tools, but it's not compatible with the Quick Swap Smart Housing tool series utilized by the Maker machine. It cuts draws on a 45-degree angle for improved speed, up to 25.4 inches per second. While it is the largest Cricut machine on the market, it is also the most expensive. Now, Cricut also has a slew of other machines in their lineup to just assist in the crafting process that you can do with the Cricut machines. They have Cricut lighting, the Bright Pad and Bright 360, which comes in 2 sizes, a table lamp and a floor lamp. And the purpose of Cricut lighting is to assist with weeding. So when you're weeding a design, it can often be very hard to see the exact lines that you're trying to release from materials. So they have this pad and this floor lamp to make that process easier. They also have the Cricut heat machines. So these are used with iron on vinyl and sublimation ink, and includes the Cricut Auto Press, which is the industrial standard Cricut has for t-shirt pressing. It is a 15-inch by 12-inch iron pad. And then they have the Cricut Heat Press series, which includes the Easy Press, which comes in the 9 by 9-inch size and 12 by 10-inch size. And they have the Cricut Heat Hat Press, which is a miniature heat iron. It's a curved iron for the curvature of a hat. And they have the Cricut Mug Press to basically sublimate ink and other vinyl directly onto the curved surfaces of mugs. Now, Cricut is not exclusive on the market. That is what we are talking about today, but other cutting machine brands on the market include Silhouette, which is probably the other most well-known maker of cutting machines. They have the Cameo series, as well as there is Brother, who's most well known for sewing machines, but they also do cutting machines and plotters and the like, and Sizzix. Sizzix may be more well known for the material, like vinyl, but Sizzix has a cutting machine as well for vinyl. So before we jump into the software requirements, do we have any questions? I don't hear any, so I'm gonna keep going. So it's important before we jump too much further into the machine to first think about the software requirements. I want to make sure that I mentioned that a Cricut machine does require usage of the Design Space software application. It is a free download available from Cricut.com or your app store on a mobile device, and it does require registration for a free Cricut ID account. It is available on Windows operating systems, Mac operating systems, as well as Android and Apple devices. You can check help.cricut.com to determine current system requirements, as well as making sure that you have a device that will currently support these software needs. I will not be covering how to use Design Space in today's class, but you can find a previous recording on the Plano Public Library YouTube channel, or join us this weekend, January 28th at 2 p.m. at Harrington Library for Design Space Basics. So that class will cover the basics of how to use the Design Space software with your Cricut machine for designs and projects. Okay. So machine overview, here we are. What is it? Your machine may look like this. This model on the screen is the Cricut Maker, and it's just the Maker 1, not Maker 3. But if you have the Maker 3, it should look very similar to this, as well as if you have a Joy or Explorer, again, it should look very similar to this. There may be a few differences just with the Start button. So first we have on our screen this top slot. So up here, this long divot at the top of the machine is a space to set any kind of iPad, iPhone, Android, whatever mobile device you're using to cut. It is available right there for you to set while the machine is processing your design, while it's cutting or drawing or whatever it's doing. So if you have to have your machine plugged into it, if it can't connect via Bluetooth, that is an option just to free up space on your table. Next, we have on the machine your power and connector to PC or Mac at the back side of the machine. So behind the machine here on the right facing forward is where you input the power connector as well as that input to your computer. Again, if you're not going to connect via Bluetooth. We also have at the top here power buttons, and I'll show that in closer proximity on the next slide. Here on the side, not pictured, but there should be a USB port. So it's really nice if you are using that device. If you're able to connect Bluetooth, you can charge your machine at the same time. If it's a longer cut or a more detailed cut and you're worried that your device may lose power, you can plug it directly into your machine to keep it charged. Then here on the bottom, the front piece of the machine that folds down has a bottom compartment, and this is where you can store extra blades, tools, and it has the added benefit of being hidden. It also includes some magnetic strips so that blades never get lost, which is really nice. We have clamp B right here, which is your blade housing. It's also on the Maker series where you have that quick swap tool, that smart housing option. It's kind of hidden behind the machine here. I'll try and point it out during the live demo. it's got that gear that allows for that smart housing series, that quick swap series. And clamp A directly next to it, which is the pin housing, where you insert new or different pins or tools. And finally, we have our storage cup. So all machines except for the Joy have this storage cup, which is just really nice to stick your weeding tools or extra pins or anything you're using for your project while you're cutting right there. So I said that we would get a closer look. So we have our buttons. We have our power switch, that on and off switch. We have that load mat, so load and unload mat switch. That will flash whenever you are from your device telling the machine, hey, I'm ready to start cutting. It'll have you load, so you'll click that flashing when you have your material lined up. And then you have the cut button. On the Maker series, that is the Cricut C. So it looks kind of like that bug, which is where we get our pronunciation for Cricut. I've heard Cri-cut, but it is Cricut like the bug. On newer models, this may actually be a play symbol, so a triangle like we see on DVDs and any kind of videos online for pause and play. And we do have that standard pause button in case anything is ever going wrong with your cutting and you need to pause the process so you can fix either your material moved on you or something like that, and you need to pause the cutting process. Okay, before we jump into the machine accessories, do we have any questions?
Not yet, Caitlin.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Priyanka. All right. So machine accessories, there's a bunch. So beyond the machine itself, Cricut requires certain accessories to function. The mandatory accessory depends on model, but typically includes your blades and tools. The Cricut machine has over 19 different kinds of blade attachments. So you have your premium fine point blade, which has a gold housing. It's a standard blade usable for cardstock, vinyl, and more. And then there is the deep point blade, which is a black housing, and it's a heavy duty blade with a steeper blade angle, 60 degrees versus 45 degrees, usable for thicker materials like felt, thick cardstock, magnet material, and more. And then you have the bonded fabric blade, which has a pink housing, and it's meant exclusively for bonded fabrics or fabrics with an iron-on backer. And then there is the silver standard blade that comes automatically with your machine. Now, I've mentioned it before, so that smart housing, the quick swap tools. This is a group of tools designed exclusively for the maker with the adaptive tool system. It features a golden gear at the top with a plunger for swapping out tips. As a special note, see Cricut's help or learning pages for more information on the appropriate materials to use with each tool. So this series includes blades like the knife blade, which think of it like a mini X-Acto knife, and it's used for balsa wood, chipboard, and leather. There's also a rotary blade, which is literally a tiny rotary wheel used for fabric and crepe and tissue paper. It should be used with the fabric grip mat as it is slightly thicker for rotary cutting, and it should be used with projects greater in size than 3¼ inch. Otherwise, it may gouge the mat or lessen the life of the blade or just not get the details quite right. Then there is an engraving tip, and it is used to remove material from a surface or etch into material to add flourishes, embellishments on a variety of material, including paper, leather, aluminum sheets, or anodized aluminum to reveal the silver beneath. There's also an embossing and debossing tip, which is a technique that uses pressure to create an indentation in the surface of the material. Cricut also has a perforation blade used to create terrible projects for like paper dolls or pop-out effects for books or cards. There's also a wavy blade, which adds a wavy edge while cutting for a fun, whimsical cut to projects. So if you wanted to add something like a scalloped edge to a project without designing the scallop, this is one way to accomplish that. There's also the scoring and double scoring wheel. And while not technically a blade, the wheel scores the paper for folding materials like cardstock or cardboard, which is very useful if you're looking to get into the greeting card design projects. There's also a scoring stylus as an alternative to the scoring wheel. So that was a lot of tools. That was a lot of information. You can find all of that on the Cricut website. But now that we've talked about the tools, we have to talk about the machine mats. So unless you have a Maker, Explorer 3, or the Joy, or a Venture, you're going to need machine mats because those series of machines can use smart materials, which is for matless cutting. So if you need mats, you have to have the right one for the material. So I mentioned that the fabric blade has to be used with the fabric grip mat. So machine mats come with, in general, there are 4 colors. So the green mat is your standard grip of adhesive. So it's meant to be used with your general everyday projects for vinyl, regular cardstock, and the like. If you touch it, it's going to be pretty sticky. Now, the blue mat, which you can see here pictured here, I've got 3 of the mats out of the 4 pictured. The blue mat is your light grip. It's meant for your thinner cardstock, your copy paper, your tissue paper, things like that, because it's not going to be as sticky. Because when you're cutting your projects, you want to be able to pull it off of the mat without damaging it. So this adhesive level is very important if you're not doing matless cutting. So if you tap that, it's not going to be as sticky. It's going to be lighter. And then you have your pink mats, which is again for fabric. So that adhesive is meant specifically for the fabric fibers. So whenever you put things on it, it's sticky. It's a different kind of stickiness from both the green and the blue mats. Not pictured here is the purple mats, and that's your heavy grip mats. And it's probably got the most adhesive of all of them because it's for your material like the balsa wood, your leather, anything that's a very thick material that you want to make sure stays in place when it's running through the machine. And even then, you may consider using a masking tape on the edges to hold your material in place. But we also have pens and markers that can go with your machine. It's important to note that the pen adapter tool is sized to Cricut brand specific pens. Cricut does offer fine point pens, and the size is normal and extra fine. They offer brand specific gel pens, glitter pens, markers, watercolor markers, infusible ink pens, and just generic markers. Infusible ink are Cricut brand pens or ink transfer sheets that are a heat transfer material to create crack and waterproof designs. It's essentially a sublimation ink where the ink changes from a solid to a gas that bonds with polyester fibers. The polymers and polyester are the recommended material for sublimation onto fabric, but infusible ink and sublimation ink can be used on hard goods like coasters, phone cases, etc. as well. There's a little bit of science thrown in there for you. As an optional tool, Cricut does also have a foil transfer tool used with craft foil transfer sheets to add a foil embossing to a variety of materials. It has 3 interchangeable tips, fine, medium, and bold, and it works great for simple outlines, calligraphy effects, or more intricate designs. It can be used on cardstock, leather, and more. All right. But there are still more accessories that go with that machine. So a little bit more about those. In general, some of these you may already have around the house. Some of these you can buy a kit that looks similar to this image over here on the right on the screen to go specifically with your machine. So this first one is scissors. Why do you need scissors? It's used for cutting your excess material. So the cost of all of this can add up. And just because you're cutting a project out of one piece of material, you may have extra, and that extra could be used for another project. So this is just a cost saving tool as well as just a practical tool for you to save material for future projects. But we also have weeder. Weeder is this second from the bottom, second from the top, excuse me, tool. It looks kind of like a dental tool, but it's used to pull off extra material around a design to expose fine details. So it's actually my favorite tool of the bunch because it really does help you pull up those small details around your design without tearing anything. Next, you have a scraper, and it's used to get small air bubbles out from the material laid out onto a cutting mat to get a flat cut, because you don't want those air bubbles that could potentially distort your image as the machine is cutting. Then there is a mini spatula, which is this one on the bottom here. And it's used to assist in removing designs and material from the cutting mat. So just as you lift things off of a cooking pan, you have this miniature spatula to help you lift paper or vinyl or other designs up from the mat from that adhesive. Then we also have that ruler. So a ruler just helps us measure out designs or ensure straight edge in design placement. So when you're going from the software to the mat, it just helps you line things up exactly where you know the machine is cutting to make the most out of your space or the placement of your design once it's done cutting. I recommend having painter's tape or masking tape on hand, which is used to provide extra support during cutting to ensure material doesn't move, as well as a heat resistant tape. And this is just used with iron on material to ensure your material doesn't move when you're trying to iron it on. So iron on material does come with a liner, and it does adhere to the surface of which you're trying to place the design. But even then, life happens. It's always better to feel more secure. So those are just a few things I recommend having on hand. Okay, so materials. The Cricut can cut over 100 different types of materials. Predominantly, it can cut vinyl, fabric, cardstock, and balsa wood, as long as you have the correct tool on the machine. So that's the most important piece of this. It can cut over 300 different types of material as long as you have the right tool with the machine. Whenever you have the cutting material list on Cricut Design Space, it'll have so many pieces of material that you didn't even think of. But I cannot stress enough that it's always best to have that in mind when you are doing your design. So some project ideas. In general, these are just some popular things that the Cricut machine is used for. So you can make your own t-shirts for family gatherings or events. You can create your own greeting cards, party decor, wall decor, cake toppers like happy birthday, congratulations. You can even design lampshades or create your own one-of-a-kind jewelry and more. So many different possibilities. So these are just some more resources that we have listed here for your usage. So these are some online resources. I highly recommend checking out the Cricut Design Space Learn resource. That page has a lot of useful information. There's also the Craft with Sarah blog, Hey Let's Make Stuff blog. There's a bunch of blogs out there for just in general cricketing. I think this bullet point was meant to be under books, but we have a few books in our collection that include some Cricut recommendations. So one is Crepe Paper Flowers by Leah Griffith. There's also the Complete Cricut Machine Handbook, A Beginner's Guide to Creating Crafting with Vinyl, Paper, Infusible Ink, and More by Angie Holden. Easy Cricut Crafts, in case you're wanting some ideas of what to start out with. This includes 35 quick, easy, and stylish cutting machine projects by Corey George, and The Maker's Guide to Cricut, Easy Projects for Creating Fabulous Home Decor, Wearables, and Gifts by Megan Makeda. So I did mention we have a few other programs. We've got the one this weekend, Design Space Basics, here at Harrington Library. We have one focused on creating bullet journal stickers in person at Haggard Library on Tuesday, February 6th at 6:30 p.m. And we will have Design Space Basics again over at Parr Library on March 17th. So I'm going to switch to the machine. So give me just one moment here while I spotlight the machine, and we're going to actually do a live demo. But while I'm getting that set up, if anyone has any questions about anything that we've discussed today, please let me know.
There was one for a live demo, and you're about to do that. So good.
I'm sorry, Priyanka, I didn't catch that. What's the question?
It was about a live demo, whether you'll do a live demo, and
Oh,
you're here now. So,
gotcha. Sorry about that. Thank you for repeating.
yeah.
Yes, so we are going to do a live demo. So here, what I mentioned earlier, we have this clamp B for the machine to hold all the cutting blades. So I have a few of them right here. So this is the premium cut, it's that gold blade. So this is the one I've mentioned a few times. This is a rotary blade, but at the top here, you can see it's that quick swap tool, and it's that smart housing because it has this golden gear right here. It is unique to the Maker model, but it matches behind. Right here, you have that golden gear. So putting those two aside because we're not using either of those. We also have this black housing, which is again the deep cut tool. And the one that we're using today, which is standard to all the machines, this silver housing device. So at the top of all these housing devices, they also have plungers. So I do want to mention that if you push down that plunger, you can actually pull these blades out and replace them. They're magnetic. So if you put them
Caitlin,
right there.
can you close the PPT so your video is full screen?
Sure. Sorry about that, guys.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, is it spotlighted for everyone? Is that one full screen now?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay, let me. Okay. How about, okay, 1 second. Thank you. So sorry. Sorry about that, guys. Is the machine full screen now for everyone? Thank you for working with our technical difficulties.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay. No, thank you so much. So if I need to repeat anything, let me know. I'm happy to cover it again. So if this is easier for folks to see now, I was just pointing out these different blades and housing. So the gold one, premium, fine point, the black, the deep cut. We've got our quick swap rotary blade right here. And it has that gear again that I've mentioned a few times. So every blade in that series has this gear, and that's how it's able to rotate and work with these heavy duty tools, because this allows it that full 360-degree movement for these larger blades. Okay. And then we do have, again, our standard blade. And what I was in the process of showing before is there is this plunger at the top of each of these housing blades. And if you hold those, you can pull the blade in and out to replace. And they are magnetic. So as long as you get it in there, it's going to snap into place. Another useful tip is if your blade ever feels like it's getting a little dull, you can just take some aluminum foil and around your house. And if you have it in the machine like this, you can stab it a few times to sharpen it, just to get a little bit more life out of your blades. So these pop in, you just line them in on the top there, close that first clamp, and you want to latch until you hear kind of a click on this first clamp. The blade over here, not blade, this clamp A for the pin is the same thing. It just pops in and out. And when you have something that sits in here, like this is the etching tool, it fits right in there. There's normally a bit of a click. Same for any kind of pin. If you're going to use a non-Cricut brand pin, you can 3D print holders that just fit right in there. You can actually pull this adapter out and replace it with the 3D printed option in case you don't want to use Cricut brand pins. But again, that just kind of fits right back in there. And you pull that over until you hear that click again. All right, so we've got our tool in there. Now we have a mat. This is that scraper that I mentioned earlier. So I've already gone through and flattened our material. This is a vinyl, just to make sure that there's no air bubbles in our project when we go to cut. You can see right here, the machine is actually already flashing for me to load the material. So what I'm going to do is line this mat up with these guidelines right here. And then I'm going to click that load button. The machine calibrates, and then that cut button starts flashing right here. And so with that in the machine, everything's good. We're going to click go, and it's going to process the material, and it's going to eventually start cutting. It's going to think for a moment. And there it goes. And I have this on a mobile device, so you can see the process. It'll tell you incrementally the percentage of how far into the process of cutting it is. So what it's cutting is just a standard vinyl, so I didn't have to mirror my design. If I was doing an iron-on, I would have mirrored any kind of word or text because you have to think about how is your design going to be viewed. So the design it's cutting is just Plano Public Library because it's always good to have some library stickers.
I have a question till it's cutting. They're asking if all the libraries have this machine and they can use this.
Yes, so we have these machines at the Parr, Haggard, and Harrington location. So they are available in our digital creation spaces, which are housed at those locations. You can actually make reservations for those rooms online with your library card. If you've ever booked a study room, it's the same process. You just go online, to room reservations, there's a tab for digital creation space, and you can make a booking for that time. When you check in for your reservation, you can let the staff member know that you would like to check out the Cricut machine. Staff will then get the machine from our cabinet out for your usage, and all of our computers actually have the Design Space software on it already, or you can download it to your mobile device and connect via Bluetooth to the Cricut Maker. So Harrington has the regular Maker model, this machine that you see on the screen, and Haggard and Parr have the newer Maker 3 models. Please note that you would need to bring your own material for cutting, but we do have standard tools and blades. And you can see the design is now at 100%. The design is ready to be loaded off of the machine, so that button's flashing again. So you push that to release it from the machine. I'm going to try and get this close enough to where you can sort of see what it cut. So it did the text Plano Public Library, did so twice. And for this removal, what we would do is actually use, again, my favorite weeding tool and probably scissors to cut these out. And then I would also use a transfer tape to show how I would remove this excess material and then put transfer tape on top to make the application easier. But that's the Cricut machine, and that's what we have done today. Is there any other questions I can answer for anyone? I can show how to make that online reservation if you like.
I have shared the room reservation link.
Okay. All right. So this is the link that Priyanka shared in the chat for room reservations. As mentioned, we've got digital creation spaces over here. Reserve a digital creation space. Select your booking type. And we're going to select Haggard, Harrington, and Parr. And on this page, you can see digital creation space recording. And it will have grayed out time for anything that's gone past or that's already booked. And you can book individual computers or usage of the entire space. It's completely up to you and what you're comfortable with using. And again, we will have a class on the actual software, the Cricut Design Space application on Sunday. But if there are no more questions, thank you for joining us today. We really appreciate it and are happy to answer any other questions you might have. We offer book a librarian sessions for one-on-one assistance with any kind of research questions or project-based questions you might have. I hope that this class helps you learn a little bit more about the Cricut. I'm going to put our upcoming programs back on the screen. So please join us for any of these upcoming classes. Our digital creation spaces have been completely updated this past spring. We've got new equipment and new tools for you, the public, to use.